Hello, everyone, and welcome on into onesoccer.ca. Yes, you see four heads because we have a special guest joining me, Annie Petrillo, Gareth Wheeler, Oliver Platt. That would be head coach of Cavalry FC, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Welcome to the
Wheels
show,
up!
Tommy.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, well, Gareth is just going to yell your voice or your name like that, I should say, with that voice all
what I
show
do.
long. Apologies.
Well, listen, you can't unhear it because it's the same as even watching the game last night with Zator. I'm like, dominant, Dominic, and then I'm just sticky. You know,
Thought it was coming. Thought it was coming.
Novak Yesvac keeps popping into the locker room as well. I'm like, that's
Novak Yesvac.
Yeah, the wheelisms.
I'm working on some other ones, Tommy. I'm working on some other ones.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. That is for sure. That is our Gareth Wheeler over there. But so pleased to have you on the show. So great to be able to pick your brain. And yeah, we're going to go everywhere. But of course, we do want to talk Cavalry with you and obviously just the season that you're having and the turnaround. Listen, I'll put my hand up. Tommy, if you're watching the show, I was always trying to egg the guys on. I'm like, I don't know. Cavalry doesn't have a win yet. Are you concerned? What's happening here? Slow start. They're on the outside looking in. But now here you are, 4-game winning streak, right? Undefeated in your last 7 matches, looking pretty good. What would you attribute the turnaround to? I mean, was it just getting your legs under you, or did you have to make some tactical or player adjustments?
It sounds a bit cliche, but trust in the process. We did have a few changes. There weren't as many as 2021. 2021 was a bit of a transitional year for us because I think in a league of parity, every 3 years, you're going to have to kind of transition out because players who have been with you a while, their contracts are moving up, and then you've got to offload to create new freshness. And when you bring in freshness, you need to have time to create chemistry. And I think what we did with, Nashi moving on, restructuring our coaching roster, having, Leon Hapgood's moved up to full-time position with us. Nick Ledgerwood's come in, left the field of play and joined us in the backroom staff. We brought in a video analyst, Daniel Hutchins, and there's a few things that we were working on. But again, trust in the process. We knew we had good players. We could see it day in, day out. We looked at ourselves and thought, well, maybe the back three wasn't working, but we'd only gone that way because we'd had some preseason injuries. And then we adjusted, got into a good formation, trusted in our principles of the play, and I still think we can be better. That's the scary thing.
Yeah, Tommy, it really seems like the backline in particular right now, like Karifi Yao just continues to really impress me. We all know Mason Trafford's got a ton of quality. Obviously, Marco. How happy are you with the way that side of the team, that looks like the best unit in the league now, doesn't it?
Yeah, listen, there was no surprise, actually. When we were winless in 3, we then bring in Marco Carducci, Mason Trafford's back in his veteran leadership, and Elliot Simmons. Elliot Simmons is one of those unspoken about players. And, you're seeing a wonderful relationship, whether it's him or Elijah Adakubi, starting the game in different ways or whatever the tactical nuance of that game we want. But Simo, he nicks more balls than a Gillette razor. I'm not sure if I can say that on the show, but he's
you can say whatever you like.
Can't say it on the show. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But those, I tell you what that did is that gave us that defensive stability because we were leaking goals, which we weren't used to. I mean, albeit the 2 goals Ford scored on us were worldies, and they'll be on every highlight reel at the end of the season. So we're like, well, it's okay. It was the York game. We were bang average, and we looked at ourselves right. Okay, we weren't mad at anything. We were like, okay, we've got Pacific at home, and what a wonderful time to play Pacific, having them knocked us out controversially in the semi-final. And there was kind of like that when Jose Escalante kept that ball in on the end, and we scored from it. It was like a healing process. Went right. We're going to go on a run here, and we have. And everything we've done, and no matter who our striker is, everyone seems to be stepping up to the plate. But I tell you, this season there's a chemistry that I see it now with Anthony Novak's not even touched the pitch. He's supporting Maya Bevan, Joe Mason, Aaron Peppel. Maya Bevan's been out and returning. He's supporting Joe Mason. Like there's incredible support amongst the peers. Competition like anything in training, but there's a great chemistry in this group.
My confidence in you and your team never wavered once, Tommy, for the record. And it actually, watching the Canadian Championship game last night, I was thinking Cavalry probably should have been there.
Yeah.
One set piece defending.
I was saying that to my wife. I watched it last night with my wife. I'm like, done. And, it's a penalty kick out away from being in a semi-final. And then, it's even teams when you're playing against a CPL side, you're like, well, we were playing at home, so it would have tilted and then we could have been playing TFC. But a game's full of coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? We've been so close. What I do like about our side is there's no quitting us, because we've been in so many semi-finals, finals, close to, never been battered by anybody, and we've got, I think, the highest winning percentage in CPL regular play. So I know we'll be there, and I always try and trust in that. But everybody had every right to have their doubts, especially when we're winless in 3. That never happened at the start of any of the other 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And I mean, this is a team also that continues to produce some great talent. And, you know, we actually, when we did our show on Monday with Diadine Abzi moving on to France, I had put the guys on the spot and I said, you know, pick a player, the next CPL player you think could move on. And Victor Loturi was there. He was part of that list. The guys did say
don't
that.
give Wheels credit for another correct prediction. He's on like a streak the last few
I know.
days, and
He
his
really,
head is
where
gone.
is that horseshoe? I don't want to know. But he's been transferred to Scottish side Ross County. And this is somebody you're pretty familiar with, because he's somebody obviously who's played with Cavalry for a few years, but has also come through played a little bit Calgary Foothills too, right? So what can you tell us about the player and why you think that this is a move where he can succeed? And how did the move even come about?
Yeah, a loaded question. There's a couple of layers to that, and I'll try and pick through it, because I think he's a great example for every young player, because he's technically so clean, right foot, left foot, lovely touch, can receive under pressure, he can run for days. But what it is his sheer resilience. The fact that in 2019 he only played like 4 times as a 17-year-old, and that was when we thought it was good for him to go back to youth sports and play when then the Calgary Foothills side was in the old USL PDL, and then COVID hit. So it kind of nixed those plans, and we didn't take him to PI. It was a short season, and so we ended up bringing him back in through the draft, the youth sports draft, and through that he became, you know, we couldn't take him out of the team, and he took his time. He was patient, he was challenging, he stepped up, but he's got resilience. And I think any young player that's coming through, it's not always going to be right. And I don't know if you guys have seen that movie Hustle, and it kind of plays a little bit on that, about that resilience to go through the adversity. And Victor has that. So the second part to that is we've made a visit to Ross County back at the end of 2019, because we felt visiting clubs of our size, and I was intrigued by their story that, you know, they're 6,500 seater stadium. They're in Inverness. They share a kind of neighboring city with Inverness Caledonians. Charlie Trafford was there, so it was a nice visit to see him as well, and kind of start planning for the future, because I knew there was a time Charlie could come back in. But also we sent Dominic Zator and Nico Pasquotti to Ross County to say, look, these are the type of players we've got. They've had a terrific season. Here's all the highlight package. Have a look at them and start to create that. So what they've done is kept eyes on us, and now they want to build these young players. And it does help that Canada Soccer's qualified for the Men's World Cup in Qatar, and will then host one in 2026. So when Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and these players are doing well overseas, guess what? The well is in Canada, and people want to fish in it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, valid point.
That's a great point. I think is just like the idea that, you know, you guys aren't just kind of producing players and waiting for people to come and knock on your door, but actually developing those networks. That's got to be a massive part of it, right? In terms of, you know, putting your players out there for other clubs to potentially come in and be interested.
Massively. And listen, I'm in a bit of a unicorn when I get to wear the hat of a GM as well as a head coach. I love coaching, love being in the locker room. You'll never ever replace that kind of competitive edge and being around that, and the X's and O's and the video analytics, all those things. I do it for hours and hours on end. But off season, and now, like, I'm already thinking who's our next one to go, because we've always had a system, whether it's Mo Farsi moving on, whether Arapin Peppel initially, to Victor Loturi, to Joel Waterman, we've not really changed. Like it's great, because I look at the football food chain, and I look at look at Ajax. Ajax are one of the best in the Netherlands that will challenge for championships and sell players. You know, you look at whether it's Santos or Fluminense in Brazil that will challenge for titles and sell on players. That's the business that we want to be a part of. So when I think back to early meetings while our ownership group was talking about this, is we only make money through media deals, sponsorship, to bums in seats, player sales. That's basically what we want to do. And now we're at a point where we're starting to have a couple of player sales that are whetting the appetite, and now we've got to keep creating it. So I think it's really important. We've got a really terrific pathway system here now, and I'm fortunate because Leon Apgood was, you know, overseeing that when I moved to Foothills. Now my brother's kind of seeing that local area underneath, and it's building a structure to create the infrastructure of the business.
And that's what we're seeing right now, that structure, that pyramid, that pathway being established. We're watching the Canada under 20s now, Tommy. 6 Canadian Premier League players representing this country in that competition. One of your players, Jean and Neil SC as well. What have you seen? There has to be some great pride, not just amongst yourself, but other coaches in the Canadian Premier League as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about the rules now. You know, like the minimum you have to have is under 21, 3 under 21 players, and that minute has been brought in that they've got to commit to 2,000 minutes this year. So you're going to play them, and I always say to all of our under 21s coming in, just because the minutes are there, you still have to earn them. So if it's one player that racks it up, great. But I even had this conversation with Montreal. They trusted in us because of what we did with Karifa Yao last year, and he's still getting better and better. And the guy's got a great future in the Canadian game. And I think we will send him back even more so ready. But in doing what we did with a young player like Karifa, Montreal then trusted us to give their first lot of professional minutes to Jean and Yao. And we always forget he's 17. But the same conversation happened that we'll teach him the game. We'll teach him what to do on and off the ball. But we're not guaranteeing your playing time. So listen, I'm sure there's other CPL clubs that will just play, and you learn. We'll have him compete for it because it's that competition that sees the success of your Victor Latoris and your Joel Watermans and all these players that are having to earn it, because nothing in life should be given for free. So earning it, there's a greater value for it.
Yeah.
Love the little pitter patter of the dog feet, by the way, in the background that we can hear. We all, other than
that's
Ollie.
my wife tap dancing. She does tap dancing.
Is that what she's doing?
Talented household.
I know. What's going on in that soccer household? But I do want to ask, obviously, the Canadian Championship. We're going to get into it a little later on in the show, but you're watching it. By the way, I know Wheels wants to brag about his prediction. I had Cavalry in the final. I really had, I had the thing, and you guys were so close.
Player on the far post on corner kicks, Tommy.
We've changed it, Wheels.
Thank me later.
Thanks for your analytics. We've changed it. We've changed it now. We've said, right, Gareth Whelan knows, he's got an unbelievable opinion of the game. Let's listen to him. And that was it.
New set piece coach.
That is the pathway to success, my friend.
Undefeated.
Pathway to success.
But I mean, you're watching the tournament. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to see 2 MLS clubs once again contest for the title. But I am curious, is there, as much as you go up against each other and you do battle on the pitch all the time in CPL action, is there some sort of brotherhood when it comes to the Canadian Championship to see CPL teams do well?
Listen, even more so when it comes down to Martin. Martin's a close friend of mine now. When you've been through the wars we did together and the battles together and their shared experiences, he was there alongside me in 2019 when we won there, and it was a similar environment. We had conversations about it, as a sounding board, and as friends would, and said it was the same environment. We drew 0-0 at home, so the actually second leg played like it was yesterday, where it was a win and advance. And actually, in fairness, the way he approached it was very good. First half, stay in the game. Second half, give yourself a chance. And I thought they did that. I mean, you're looking out. No CPL side has been blown out. You look at Toronto against Halifax versus Toronto against Montreal. And for the delta in our salary cap, people don't realize whether it's 11 million at Whitecaps and, let's say 800,000 for CPL, we're not far off. And that speaks volumes to the credit across the league that every game you see Forge and TFC in the final. My goodness. Forge were excellent against them. I think this is brilliant. There's more eyes now on our league saying, actually, this is a really good league. MLS has done a lot of great things, and the 3 Canadian clubs have done terrific things for Canadian soccer. This Canadian Championship gives us all a chance to pick up a shovel and be a bigger part of it. So, I watched it last night thinking, geez, we're a defensive corner away or a penalty kick away from being against York in the semi-final, right? That's how close and how fine the margins of the game are.
Yeah, no, very, very close. But before we let you go, I know you have a game coming on up against FC Edmonton, good little rivalry between the two of you. But we also know, this being Pride Month, that the teams are doing stuff. They're doing their own versions of Pride raising. So what can you tell us about Cavalry's involvement in Pride Month and what you have planned during this upcoming match?
Yeah, listen, there's some really cool things that we've partnered with Volkswagen on. That there's some nice colorful wristbands. There's rainbow flags that we've got for the first few hundred fans that come through the door. It's so good, because I think this is now the beauty of the league, is inclusivity of every race, gender, religion, sexual orientation. It's now, we were up at Valor previously, we were at Wanderers grounds not so long ago. and you're seeing the rainbow flags, and it actually feels part of our soccer culture, like it's always been there. Whereas I think for older leagues, they're having to include it. Ours has been there for the longest time. So I think this is a really good, celebration of awareness and a celebration of inclusivity to, what the greatest thing about football is, the only colors that matter are the ones on your jersey that you support. That's it. And everybody's free to wear them. And I love that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we're looking forward to that game. Tommy, really appreciate you taking the time. Anytime you want to drop by, you just give us a call. We'll have a little box right there waiting for you.
Ollie's coming for your job, not mine. Your job, Ollie.
I would be honored to give it up to Tommy. I think he's got better things to be doing in the meantime, though.
Yeah, go join the tap dance show.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time.
Great stuff.